Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Miller Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Franklin Miller, with a new face. You might have known him from the Burn City Sports podcast that we do, although we haven't done one in a while. But I like to invite out my guy, Chris Denson, who's also a Suns reporter. Chris, how you doing this evening?
I am good, man. It's a Friday, and I appreciate you for having me on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm planning to do a lot more with you in future episodes where we can just talk Suns, and especially with playoffs around the corner, it should be good insight for people to want to get to, just talk about whether it's KD, Devin Booker, just everything in general about the Suns. So should be really exciting stuff. I know that the Suns have a really, important game tonight against Sacramento Kings. Before we dive into that, I just wanted to kind of go back couple games ago when they lost to the Lakers and some things that happened in that game, especially and Monty Williams said it best, 46 to 20 free throw discrepancy. And that's been a problem all year for the Suns. They just begin getting out free throwed basically every game. I saw a stat where they're like 29th when it comes to free throw attempts per game. Like they're right there with Golden State and the bottom low. And the key with those two teams are they're both jump shooting teams. One's a 3-point shooting team, another's a mid range shooting team. Um, I know after the game, Monty Williams, along with this game and going back a week ago against the Bucks when they lost, he's mad about the officiating in that game as well, with Giannis shooting as many free throws as he did. So I want to start this question with you, Chris, in terms of the officiating, because I know Monty Williams got fined 20,000 today officially for his comments. Um, like, what's your take on like the fine? Do you think it was well warranted? Do you think the league's kind of, for lack of a better word, soft for that? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Uh, I mean, like you said, you go back to the Lakers game, and I want to say they attempted. I mean, the disparity was ridiculous. I want to say 46 free throw attempts for the Lakers, 20 for the Suns. Um, like you said already, it's been a case that's been made kind of throughout the season. Uh, some people I've seen are applauding Monty for speaking up the way he has, just because I think this season has been the worst season in terms of referee criticism from just around the league. So I think Monty did have a place to stake his claim on that. The only problem with that is I've also seen a fair share of people saying, and I kind of am leaning this way, that the Suns may not be one of those teams that has an ample amount of space to make that criticism. They have a fair claim, but it shouldn't be to where you all think that it should be 40 free throws a night just because we're not a team that necessarily finds ourselves at the free throw line that much. And it's
Mm-hmm.
because we're not necessarily a team that looks to draw a lot of contact the way that they play. Booker definitely did get some missed calls against the Lakers. I don't think anybody would disagree against that. Uh, but I just don't think that I've seen that be the case for Monte a couple of games. I know you have too. I don't think that that should be the end game of the season as far as saying, well, we didn't win some of these games or a good bunch of these games because we didn't get free throws. You can say that, but I wouldn't place that straight at the feet of the refs and say it's your fault. I wouldn't do that just because, once again, the personnel that we have on the court don't necessarily equate to free throws. Outside of maybe Booker and now Kevin Durant, Aiden's not a huge free throw shooter. Chris Paul's not at a point in his career anymore where he's going to the line a ton of times. And everybody else from that point kind of just trickles on down. So I think it was fair to make the case. I just don't know if it was valid as far as how much of the case he should have made, and the fact that it's so late in the season. Uh, I'm not too sure where that puts them with that, but I know
Yeah.
you obviously have like a good opinion on that too. So
Yeah, of course. I mean, first things first, it was kind of interesting with there was like kind of a clip that was going on Twitter where it panned to the Lakers bench in the fourth quarter, and you heard D'Angelo Russell basically said Scott Foster's refing, Scott Foster's out there. So it's like these NBA players, they're kind of using the refs to their. They know exactly who's going to be refing before every game, so they're using that to their advantage in terms of game plan of how they want to go against every game. So when you look at teams like Phoenix or Golden State, these teams are going to be they won't be able to maybe outshoot these teams, but what they are going to do is they're going to try to get to the line as much as possible to slow the game down to get them frustrated, and it appears to be working. As
yeah.
opposed to Monty Williams, I would say, yeah, I had a feeling this was kind of coming ever since the Milwaukee situation. It was boiling the entire season. He's just had enough now. And to Monty's credit, he does have a point. In
Oh yeah.
terms of the way the officiating has been called, it's been like this throughout the entire league. So it's not just on Phoenix, but I would say though that there does come a time where Phoenix probably does have to. Um, they do have to like pivot and kind of take that at an advantage as well, and maybe try to get some draw calls as well for their own sake. See how kind of go into games, kind of seeing who's officiating. Can they use that to their advantage to get to the foul line more often? And to their credit, though, I mean, shoot, Devin Booker's still not getting calls, which kind of shocks me in a sense because he's a former All NBA player. He's averaging 28, and he's one of the least. He's one of the least. He doesn't really get that many free throws. Basically what I'm trying to say.
No,
This
no,
is
he doesn't.
and it's
Uh,
a travesty, a
yeah.
travesty. But it's something that they definitely need to monitor the league itself. But I don't even know if the league wants to change this, especially because there's more offense being scored. So I
Yeah.
don't even know what you really could do. Which leads me to like my next question, which is, do you think this is an NBA officiating problem, or is it the way? Is it a problem of the way the Suns play from a play style perspective, or a little bit of both?
I was just gonna say, I think it's a little bit of both. I saw Trey Young say something that I think a lot of people have been saying, and you're hearing an actual player say it very boldly when he said that referees should be held as accountable. They shouldn't be able to just say we missed that and life goes on. They should have fines. They should have suspensions depending
I
on the
agree.
severity of be it multiple openly missed calls or something like that. I definitely do think that I don't think Adam Silver has a choice if we're saying league wise after this season to take a step back and try to implement some type of structure change. You saw them complaining as much. I'm not going to say complaining, but making a deal out of it as much as they did. Got the one referee, I forgot his name, but it got him removed from referee duty for a little while. And I think that's something that you have to make normality. It's
Yeah,
your job. Yeah, you're gonna miss calls, but if it's becoming consecutive and it's like a normality to where people say, "Oh, look, like D'Angelo Russell, look, hey, Scott Foster," that's something where you already know this person has tendencies to call certain things. So definitely on that side. But on the Sun side, to your point, Devin Booker does not get the calls that someone of his caliber should get. I hate saying that because I do feel like everybody should get the same calls. I know there are star calls, stuff like that. But he doesn't get, when you look at other superstars around the league, he doesn't get those same calls at all. But on the flip side of that, if we're just looking at Devin Booker, that's Devin Booker. I think once you put him in his own bucket, and I mean KD now, because I have to keep remembering he's here, even though he isn't here. I think once you do that, you have to look at the rest of the roster and ask yourself, are these guys that you're normally accustomed to seeing being on different teams where they were getting those type of free throw attempts. And I don't think so. And I think that's what a lot of people are saying is we have to stop acting like this team is a foul hungry team, which isn't a bad thing, but it can make or break a game. And we're seeing that a lot more now. I think if Booker gets up to, a respectable amount of free throws, I think you would see a lot of people not complain as much just because you know the rest of the personnel. KD's going to get his foul calls when he comes back. So that'll help a little bit. But, if you're looking at the list, like I said, the Chris Pauls, the Torrey Craig, Damian Lee, these are guys that are going in and getting 6 free throw attempts a night or something crazy like that. They may get 2 attempts a night. So we're just not that foul hungry like that. So
Yeah.
I get what Monty was saying, but at the same time, you have to draw back and look at, do we really have people that look for contact? Aiton's not really a big contact person. He plays his game the way he plays, which is where you mostly get a lot of contact is from your centers. That's where. So I think it goes both ways, definitely.
Yeah, and just to your point too, it's like Devin Booker doesn't get a lot of these foul calls yet. Austin Reeves gets more. It seems to get some more foul calls than some of these stars, man. And to Austin Reeves' credit, man, he studies guys like James Harden and Trae Young. So I mean, maybe he knows something that a lot of the other players don't, or maybe the other players do know it but aren't trying to, play basketball that way and to an extent. But yeah, it's troubling if you're a Suns fan just seeing this guy that's probably the fourth option getting more foul calls than the best player on their team when KD's not on the court. Like that's crazy. But but to answer the question, I would say, like, to your credit, it's a little bit of both. And the NBA officiating has definitely been a league wide problem, and I think a lot of it has to do with one, the NBA likes offense. That's how you get paid a lot of money. That's how you get a lot of tourisms to games. That's how you get a lot of fans watching playoff games. You need offense. The same goes to the NFL. It's going to continue to go. It's going to be an offense heavy league. Shoot, the lowest defensive rating is like 102, which is absurd in today's NBA. Like in the 90s, like that's one of the best offenses in the league.
Well, it's the same way with the All-Star game. People don't foul in the All-Star game. That's why people come. They want the fast breaks. They want open threes. And they've gotten a lot of slack about that, not playing defense and things like that. You go back to, maybe 2011, 2012. You don't have to go back too far. Honestly, before Steph and Clay started revolutionizing the whole game, free throws were huge because people were still driving more. They were shooting more, be it pump fake mid ranges, things like that, getting that contact. And yeah, like you said, it is slowly becoming a thing where you're only really seeing it from be it a forward or a center, someone like that that's in that area.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
I also have a theory too. Actually, I might take it back because I would say Milwaukee doesn't fall into this realm, and Giannis gets a lot of free throw attempts. But I was thinking, does it have to do the lack of calls? Does it have to do sometimes with the market teams are in? I don't know if that's ideal because Giannis obviously gets a lot of foul calls, and Milwaukee's not one of the biggest markets out there. But that's
definitely
also
plausible.
that's been something that I've kind of thought of because like a guy like Austin Reeves getting that many free throw attempts.
Yeah, I forget. And man, I don't want to. I like his game overall. I think he's came a long
nice.
way.
He's nice. I don't fault him at all for trying to get these foul calls. Like you do whatever you can to get points to help your team win. He's doing what he needs to do.
I think that much of what the internet trolls are saying of him possibly being a volunteered industry plant, because I don't think he's that by choice.
Yeah.
is coming into play. I saw Chris Paul after the game say something along the lines of Austin. He got a foul call for Austin, and he said that's not a foul. And he said Austin Reeves even told him, yeah, that wasn't a foul call.
Yep.
But it's kind of like that Linsanity thing where he's high, he's getting what he wants, and hopefully it doesn't die out for him. But I mean, the fact that I think if you pull up Austin Reeves' last 3 games, free throw attempt wise, he's probably got more attempts than the Suns had against the Lakers as a whole. I'm pretty sure I'm not too
That's
far off on that.
unbelievable.
So yeah, it's definitely a problem, but it's like you said, I think it deals with the market, which hence comes in Austin Reeves. He's in LA. He's with Braun. There's no Braun. There's no, AD comes in and out.
Yeah.
You need that savior to just kind of help the season go out in a blaze of glory. Insert Austin Reeves.
Bro.
So I do agree, but I think that doesn't help the Suns because people look at the Suns and say, "Oh, they've got KD, they've got Book, they've got Ayton, they've got Chris Paul, they're fine." Yeah, but they're still in the West, which, as you noted, is clearly, even with a couple of games
Wide,
left, ever changing. So
wide open. Crazy. Yeah.
wide,
And and even to my other point is um, I do think it is a little bit on the Suns too, and that goes with the territory of being a jump shooting team, so to speak.
yeah,
Um, I I think that over the last few games, I've seen them at a willingness to try to get to the rim to draw foul calls, and I feel like a lot of that is because Monty's probably alluded in practice, like, "Hey, we're not getting calls. Let's force the action." And even when they've been forcing the action, they still haven't been getting the calls, which probably alluded to why Monty got the fine. But based off of the way they play, it's like it's almost like you're kind of expected to not for a team to kind of not get those calls. So I don't necessarily think they got to change the way they play per se, but I do think there is times and elements where, depending on game situation, where you got to try slow the game down, get into the foul, or try to get the force the refs to blow the whistle, do something because that's the reason why they've been so up and down this year. It's the free throw
yeah.
disparity, So it's something that just really needs to get fixed. Moving.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, like you said, I wouldn't place, even if this season is a disappointment, I'm not gonna place unless something just happens crazily. I'm not gonna place that at Monty Williams' feet. Um,
Yeah,
what I will say is we did get the two bigger pieces for the bench in Terrence Ross and TJ Warren. Those were the flashier of the names, let me say that.
yeah.
And hasn't panned out yet. Uh, you have Damian Lee sitting on the bench now. He's getting cold. He was one of your probably the most dependable 3-point shooter for most of the season.
Especially in the
As
fourth
far as
quarter.
yeah, I mean, he was Mr. Dependable. I mean, I don't think anybody would argue that. And now you look and you have Ish Wainwright getting some of that time mostly. Terrence Ross, TJ Warren's getting a little more time now here and there. And I think Monty's just trying to figure out what works, which nobody can blame him for. But much to your point, I think there has to be more of an urgency from him to tell Ish Wainwright, get to the lane. Tell, whomever you have in at that point that's not necessarily known as a knockdown shooter. Now, Ish has made some pretty good, has some pretty good showings where he's knocked down those shots, but
Yeah,
I wouldn't go so far as to call you a solidified sharpshooter to where you should just be firing them at will like that.
yeah.
Get to the line. It's just, I think he's just trying to figure it out. Terrence Ross looks a little uncomfortable out there at times.
Especially on
And
defense.
yeah, I say it on offense too. But when I was sitting there the other night, I was thinking, you got to think he's coming from a team with Orlando where he's used to having a lot of usage. And when you
Yeah,
stack him out there with Booker, like one possession, Booker had the ball majority of the shot clock. He gives it up to Terrence Ross. That's not necessarily something Ross is used to coming out of Orlando, where he's able to have the majority of the possession, and if he can't find his shot, he's the one giving it up to somebody else, not the other way around. So
Hmm.
he looks kind of uncomfortable. TJ Warren hasn't really found his fit yet, I don't think. And it's just really hard because you can't get all of those guys together at the same time with, Katie and Aiden being out right now. So it's really hard for you to figure out those rotations the way that you want them. And you
Hmm.
don't have a lot of time left now to really get that the way you want before playoffs get here. So,
Yeah, and I agree, man. And I think that's one of the things that you nailed it on the comment. That actually got me thinking. Terrence Ross and TJ Warren, they're really usage level players to where their scoring really comes from them being ball dominant during some
yes,
possessions. And that
yes,
actually leads me to thinking more going forward into the offseason that the Suns probably need to find more off ball players to play off the bench to go alongside with Devin Booker so that, there's not really a feel for like being ice cold, so to speak. Because that was probably one of the reasons why Mikal Bridges were so on and off. Because you see him with Brooklyn, with him being ball dominant, even when his time with the Suns, when he was kind of the go-to guy, he was averaging like 25. So it's like it kind of gets to the point where when you want to play with a guy like Devin Booker, and KD fits the role too, and he's amazing. He can fit with
yeah,
anybody
he can
because
fit with anybody.
he's so great off the ball. He doesn't need to dribble too
No,
much to get his shot off.
no.
So. And speaking of KD, he's returning next week, or that's the hope. That's the
That's
hope.
the hope. Yeah,
That's
that's
the,
the hope.
but his home debut could be next week against the Timberwolves. So I ask you, Chris, um, what do you think about this? Like, what are you expecting if he does play? And even if you want to add, do you think it's the right decision to play him now? Even though it probably might be because of where the standings are. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on this? What is
I
what? Is,
mean, I don't think we were really worried about him prior to him making his initial debut. I'm not really worried about him coming back. I know he can make an impact even if he's on minutes restriction. Like you said, it's trying to get him ramped up for that playoff time when you have to play those extended minutes, stuff like that, while also trying to avoid him re-injuring anything or aggravating anything right before the playoffs.
yeah,
That's really my only strong concern. And once again, that kind of plays back to how thin the Suns look right now without him and Aiton. Which obviously you're down two starters. You're gonna look thin, but it's a thin where you sit back and say, is this team contender ready from top to bottom, not just from 1 through 5? Because anything can happen in the playoffs. We've been saying that all season. It's right around the corner. That's really my only worry. I'm not too worried about him when he makes his debut. I don't think he's going to go out there and drop a 30 piece or anything like that just because he's working his way back. But I think he's still going to be very, very contributive to what they're, getting done against the Timberwolves. Timberwolves aren't a um, not a team that they should be worried about as long as everybody does what they need to, but they are a team that can take the momentum. They've done that quite a few times. Uh, I think it just all boils back down to everybody around Devin Booker and KD, honestly. Kind of like you were saying just now. I think the thing is, everybody saw Terrence Ross coming, everybody saw TJ Warren coming, and they said, yes, scores, people that can catch fire. But like you just said, and it's a really good point, and it's annoying, but it's the truth. Just because they're scores doesn't mean that it's gonna work. They're like you said, you need off-ball scores. They need the ball. When TJ was with the Pacers in the bubble, that was his team. Undeniably. Terrence Ross during his prime. Um, even when he had like an Aaron Gordon or a Vucevic, he still was their go-to scorer for the most part. Uh, I think you need somebody, and it's not namely saying him, but somebody of that archetype, like a Duncan Robinson, somebody that comes in, gets you shots, they know their role, and they're comfortable with that role. They're comfortable coming off screens, pin down screens, catch and shoot, getting back. Duncan doesn't play the best defense in the world, so that could be something. But just somebody of that degree offensively
Yeah.
that you know is going to come in at the end of the game. He's going to be maybe 3 or 4 from 3-point range. And once again, that kind of comes back to Damian Lee because you kind of already have that with him.
Mm-hmm.
You're just, so it's kind of like that's where it goes back to Monty as far as I get you're trying to make everybody feel included, but
You have that with
it's,
Lee. You have that with Lee, and to a lesser degree, you have that with Landry
yeah,
Sham. But
yeah,
do you really want to play Landry Shamet a lot more minutes ahead of Terrence
nah,
Ross? And to Landry Shamet's credit, he has played quite a bit these past 2 games and has done really
oh
well.
yeah,
So I do think he's a fit. It's just how do you fit the roles where I think a guy like Terrence Ross playing alongside KD as opposed to playing alongside Devin Booker can work really really
oh
well.
for sure,
I think
for
because
sure,
yeah, I think Terrence Ross is a great backup for D Book because he does a lot of similar stuff that D Book could do from a usage standpoint. Now I don't think he can create a shot as well as D Book can off the dribble,
nah.
but from a usage rate, you kind of want to put Landry Sham or Terrence Ross with guys like Chris Paul / Cameron Payne, and
I
then
was gonna say Chris Paul,
yeah,
KD. If
maybe-
I'm subbing Book out, it would more than likely be to bring in Terrence Ross with either Chris Paul or Devin Booker the Devin Booker, or Kevin Durant on the floor, just
yep,
because it still gives him that availability. Kevin Durant does look for his own shot, but he also does look to facilitate in that same breath. So
yep.
it's sad, and I feel like we've been saying this all season, and like I said, we're rounding the bat. There's just not a lot of time left to really say, and they're still, favorites to, go all the way. And they can. It's also that thing where, they could very easily get maybe to the conference finals with a fully healthy, KD, Book, Aiton, Chris Paul, and those guys. You just don't know. I don't think anybody goes to sleep confidently saying, Suns in 4 against, in first round, second round, or, Suns in 5 for that matter. A lot of these rounds that I think they're going to be in are going to go to 6 or 7 games. I
Mhm.
don't see it. And like you said, we look right now, we got the Kings tonight. The Kings have bust the doors wide open. We knew they were good,
Yeah,
but man,
they're on the come up for a couple years. They just need the right coach to fit their skill set, and they got the perfect one in Mike Brown, who came from the Golden State system to run and gun with those guys. So that's
you
beautiful.
got Mike, you got Fox is steadily improving. Sabonis is just, I don't think there's one team, despite what player you have at that position, even with us having KD, I don't think anybody would argue any team against getting a guy like Sabonis because he
Mm-mm.
just does everything. I mean,
Yeah,
the dude
100%.
does everything.
He can
It's
play.
beautiful.
He can play out. He can play in. He can pass. He can rebound. He can
It's beautiful.
it's really great. I mean, you can argue his defense is there one day game and not there the next game, but hey, man, what you get all around on offense is amazing.
It's beautiful to see. Yeah, watching them play is nothing short of.
Yeah.
You're in for a show, and they're
I,
winning on top of
yeah.
it.
I don't quite see the fit with Chris Paul if he were on the Suns, but because I think he just suits better with a fast paced team. Like,
Yeah,
could
like
you
Fox.
imagine?
Yeah.
Obviously Sacramento's kind of like plays the Warriors system, but could you imagine Sabonis with Golden State?
Oh yeah, that would be ridiculous.
Like,
And I
look,
think someone compared him. Some analyst compared him, or that was a coach that said he's the next thing as far as made a Draymond Green comparison as far as how he brings the ball
mm,
down the court, gets it to an open shooter. And even if you don't find Draymond as like one of your favorite players, which it is what it is, I do
yeah,
think that is a compliment to Sabonis because that's one thing Draymond can do. He can run the fast break. He does find the open shooters. Um, and yeah, like you said, it's a beauty to watch them play. They're playing and they're winning. It's not just fun basketball to watch. They're actually winning. They're up
yeah.
on us.
It's the little
Uh,
things, man. It's
yeah,
really the little things, like, the things that people find boring or not that flashy or what wins you championships. Like, it's just as simple as that. That's why a lot of people don't really like Draymond because 1, he gets into it with refs, he gets into it sometimes with players, he gets into it sometimes with fans, and a lot of people don't like his rambunctious stuff, but hey, he's not the flashiest guy on the court. See, he sometimes looks like when he shoots, he has a backpack on his back, but
backpack shooter.
but when it comes to the little things in terms of going up and down the court, playing defense, getting the balls to the right spots, knowing where they're going to be before they're even there to pass it
No,
there, it's so important that a lot of people overlook it. That's one of the main reasons why they have 4 championships. Like you can't
you know
replace.
the funny part about people that complain about Draymond in that same breath say, "Oh well, if you wouldn't have got in the I'm not going to call it a scuffle, but with LeBron and you got suspended for those games in the finals, y'all would have another ring." Well, you're
Yeah,
adding to his importance by saying that. Like you're
yeah,
saying he's not that important, but you're literally adding to his importance by saying that
right. It's
because
crazy.
you're saying he affected them winning another championship. So you got to pick a struggle, man.
I know. It's
Yeah.
it's crazy, man. But yeah, just a little side note. But yeah, that's really what it comes down to. So and
I mean, and if you look at it, I mean, right now, as we already stated, the Suns are fourth, Kings are third, Grizzlies are second,
mhm.
Nuggets are, of course, first. I don't really see the Nuggets giving up that spot with a
Nuggets
handful of games
Nuggets
left.
have the first seed locked for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's a done deal. But much to your credit, like you said, we're in fourth. We are a couple of hairs up on the Clippers. The Clippers have literally been right there with us almost, it feels like. We do
Paul
enough to
George,
keep the fourth spot, they do enough to keep the fifth spot. And
yeah,
it's
Paul
almost to the
George is
point
hurt
like,
too.
yeah, I mean, that's probably going to hurt their chances of taking that fourth spot if I had to guess. Just because it's Paul George, that's your, go to, if not second go to option. It's
Hmm.
probably going to hurt their chances if I had to guess. But I mean, like much to what you said, I mean, everybody else is like pretty much breathing down your neck. We are at 38 wins. Uh, Clippers are at 39. Warriors are at 38. Timberwolves are at 37. Um, Heck, the Lakers are at 36.
Hmm.
I if
These
this
next few weeks are important, man.
if the seating stays the way it is right now through the entirety of the end of this last little portion of the season, I would be utterly shocked. And it's not to say we're gonna drop. Hopefully we at least get to maintain that fourth spot. Um, but man, those other teams, of course, the Warriors can have everything but the dirt on them, and they just come back out of nowhere, out the grave, and they're back, just
Yeah,
like
I
that. They're
mean,
back.
they're getting healthy too. They're about to get Gary Payton the second back. It really what it comes down to, which is why I'm low key hoping the Suns don't play the Warriors. What it really comes down to is if Andrew Wiggins comes back. Now, obviously, he might be a little rusty, but if he comes back for playoffs,
Even if you're bringing him off the bench,
their
bench
team is basically
Andrew
the same as
Wiggins.
it was last year. And
Yeah,
you're just replacing Otto Porter Jr. with Dante DiVincenzo. That's
I mean, and Wiggins was so crucial to their finals run
yeah.
last year, as far as against Boston, him locking up Tatum, locking up JB. I mean, he was crucial. I don't know. I mean, they probably
He
still
was
had
their
a pretty
second best
good
player.
chance,
He was their second best
but
player by far.
yeah, I mean, I can't confidently say they would have beat the Celtics without him.
They
Even him
wouldn't have.
coming off the bench, I mean, him coming off the bench puts a lot of teams at worry. I mean, it just does.
Yeah.
So
They for sure
uh,
wouldn't have beat the Celtics without Wiggins. Steph would have got them game 4 because he was that great.
he was just
But
that
after
great.
but after that, the Celtics would have won the next 2 if
Yeah.
Wiggins wasn't there. So yeah.
But yeah, we have a hopefully good one on our hands tonight with the Kings and ours truly. I'm gonna say the Kings are probably gonna take this one, and I'm only gonna say that strictly because of injuries, without not having KD until he makes his hopeful home debut.
Mhm.
Uh, Aiton still trying to get back in the groove. They're too good right now. They just have that thing, and every good team this season has had a funk. I was saying that earlier to myself. There's not been one team I don't think this season that has just been consecutively good from start to finish. Every team has went through a stretch, some bigger than others. They aren't in their funk right now. They're grooving. I mean, they kind of have been for the majority of the season, but I think this is their game to take.
Yep.
And from that point, like you said, you have Durant coming back. You just really have to lock in for these last couple games. I mean, you're almost there. You just got to lock in.
Yep. The Suns have lost 5 of the last 7. They're probably gonna have lost 6 of the last 8 after tonight, and that pains me to say.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's just like you said, it's injuries, man. I'm not really too worried about this team. It's just like when you're missing 2 of the 3 of your top scorers, it's
when
gonna
you're missing two of the three of the top scores and your number one option in Booker is what I know some people are still like, oh, is it KD? Is it Booker? I'm still gonna say it's Booker.
yeah, it
When
is.
he's still
Great.
when he's still dropping 30 points, 40 points with these two out and they're still losing, come on.
That
You
Thunder
can't ask
team
much
should
more
not
from
have
him.
lost that Thunder game. That was a travesty.
Yeah, that
They let that one. They let that one. That was a bad
I
one.
can speak a little more freely on it than when you're writing because you have to be, somewhat objective. The amount of free throw, and I'm not trying to sound like Monty, but I do get it with that. It was
O'Shea.
just so, yeah, man. It was just so many blatant calls that should not have even been called in the first place, be it him extending it. And I get it, the stars, they normally try to extend their forearm, but when you're extending your forearm and they're not calling it on you, fine, whatever. When you're extending your forearm on be it a Josh Okogie, a Devin Booker, or whomever, and they're calling the foul on them, that's crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, he attempted a ridiculous number of free throws.
And
It was,
the worst part too was I remember vividly D Book had a should have been and one at the free throw line off a mid range jumper at the free throw line, and he kind of fell forward. I was like, how is that not a foul? It
yeah,
was just like, ugh. I don't know what D Book has to do to get these calls, man. It's just
it's crazy when you see somebody, and it's not discrediting Shy. It's just what makes him to where he gets those calls and Booker doesn't.
I don't know.
Like what do I need to do? Is it because he's on a team that's not? I'm not going to say not as talented, but obviously don't have those championship aspirations as of yet. So, like, give me a reason that makes sense to where I say, okay, I get it. I haven't seen that yet, and like you said, we got a pretty good picture against the Thunder of
Yeah.
that. I do think tonight you may see if it does become a thing where Booker is drawing that contact. I think you would see him get more of those calls. Uh, but once again, I don't think Suns fans should go up in arms if there's a lower number of free throw attempts compared to the Kings, because the Kings do, once again, they are, drawing contact more outside of Booker. Chris Paul's not getting to the line like that, and the list goes on. So, but I do think you see Booker in particular get a lot more of those calls tonight. Um, Other thing, real quick, is the
Yeah.
only other thing I think I have an issue with not necessarily. I think Monty has to figure out, and this is the only thing I'm more critical on him with because you've had more time. I get Terrence Ross, I get TJ. You just got them not too long ago figuring it out. You've had DeAndre Ayton, Jock Landell, and Busy as your three big man depth for the start of the season. At some point, you got to figure out, and I get it, different rotations call for different people, different players that you play against, different lineups. But it takes certain players out of the groove to me when you're talking about Ja. I think Ja, he's not as defensively savvy, maybe as Busy.
Hmm.
He's not god awful dangerously, away from him, but he does have that offensive capability to stretch the floor. I think if he gets more consistent minutes, he can be not a consistent threat, but he can knock those down. And when Aiton's healthy, right now you got no choice but to just swap him. But I think going forward, it's like you have to have some type of concrete. Okay, this is my second big, this is my third big. And
Yeah.
give them both that credit of having whomever you go with that consistent playing time of knowing they're gonna be able to come in, not go cold. I think that's the only thing. You've had more than enough time to figure that part of it out because you've had them. So
Yeah, and to your credit, I mean, yeah, I agree too. I do think though that like I understand why Monty does it because when you're going up a team for say for instance like Milwaukee, I don't know if
mhm.
you typically want a guy like Landell going up against some of their
Oh,
bigger.
for sure.
So like it's definitely based off matchup purposes. However, what that leads to me though, Chris, is like how are you kind of viewing Darius Baisley in a sense? Because I feel like Darius Baisley is that kind of guy that is a really good shot blocker, especially in the perimeter. That I believe can give you solid minutes off the bench, defensively speaking, against those bigger bodies. You can play a guy like him next to Jock if need be in certain spells of the game. I feel like that's something that I've always wanted to know why they haven't really been playing Darius Bailey as much. But
He's kind of in that bucket with TJ and Terrence, honestly. It's like they brought him in. These are your, reinforcements, and they're not really seeing like you said, Terrence and TJ are, getting a little more ramped up as far as their minutes. But yeah, Baisley hasn't really played. And then when he does play, defensively, he hasn't been bad. I think
mhm,
it's once again, when you don't play that much, you don't know how your other teammates play. Are they, switching? Are they, covering for you? You don't know those things.
yeah,
Um, and offensively, he's not known as a terrific offensive player, but he can contribute. But once again, when you're not getting those minutes, and you're on a new team, if you're on the same team, maybe you can get in, still contribute if you're not getting minutes. When you're on a new team and you're not getting minutes, you can watch all the film and everything else, practice, but in that real life game situation, it's like I'm not out here a lot, so I can't help impact. So I agree with that a lot. I think the one thing that we both can agree on, especially as the playoffs get near, is someone is going to end up being more than one person. Actually, is going to end up being the odd man out.
oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's inevitable. It's probably gonna be Baisley, just depending on how Monty continues to try to figure out the rotations. And it's probably going to be,
Yeah,
maybe another guard here and there. Payne is playing great. Terrence Ross still trying to find his way. Like you said, Shamek's been pretty good. Somebody's not going to have that time to shine when the playoffs get here. And it's going to suck because, some of these guys you brought in could probably make a real difference. And then they get in for a sparing amount of time, and then you take them out like, yeah, I'm not doing that again. When you probably should, they just need that time. I mean,
yeah, and to your credit too, the reason why Baisley and T.J. Warren haven't been playing as much, in my opinion, is because of Ish Wainwright. I think Monty Williams just likes
yeah.
one his off the ball shooting a little bit more, and then
Oh, yeah.
his defense has been pretty good coming
Yeah.
off the bench, and he spells well for you um, off the bench when it comes to just being a
He's
body out there.
definitely, yeah, he's definitely a momentum changer, I think. He can definitely help change the momentum. I think the thing, too, though, is you have to find that right fit. And I don't know if you have Ish out there, do you want Baisley out there too, or do you
No,
want
it does.
T?
Yeah,
That's the thing. It's like, okay, we didn't really know what was going to happen with Ish for a minute because his contract, they had to make it good for the rest of the season. Okay, are you guys going to do that? You just brought in these new pieces. Is Ish out the door? Okay, no, Ish is back in the door. Okay. And now
Mhm.
he's taking those minutes. So now it's like, well, he can't necessarily coexist with these other guys. So
It's crazy too because the minute TJ Warren got traded here and Darius Bazley came, I was thinking, dude, Ish Wainwright might be out of here.
yeah,
The
yeah.
complete opposite happened. He actually ended up getting a new contract and getting more playing
I
time than
thought it
both.
was an easy way out to not have to, and he's not a bad player by any means, but I
No,
thought
he's
it was an
not.
easy way out to say, hey, look, we like you, but we got a new direction we're going.
Yeah.
Not the case at all. So it kind of does make you scratch your head and say, okay, so what are you all thinking as far as that? TJ is very good defensively. Baisley's very good defensively. I don't really know what the overall goal is with that bench unit. And I've been saying that honestly, though, even prior to KD trade,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
there's no real identity there. And I think that's what it boils back down to. What's the identity? Are we a team that plays fast tempo with Cameron Payne? And are we a team that, kind of stops and, plays more systematically? Are we a defensive identity for, and you don't necessarily have to limit yourself to one thing, but right now it looks like there's no identity. And that's the problem, I think. So,
Yeah.
people don't try to make a huge deal out of benches, but benches literally win championships. I mean,
Oh yeah,
we've
100%.
seen
And
it more times than not.
to be fair, it's been a very weird year where Cam Johnson got hurt, then everybody on the team started getting
Oh
hurt.
my God, yeah.
And then they all come back, but then you trade for KD, and then KD was out, and then he finally get him back, and then KD went back out. Now DeAndre Ayton's back out. Like you didn't really have continuity. Not to make excuses for the Suns, but you don't really have that continuity to where like I guarantee you they know their identity when everybody's healthy, but it's kind of that like snooping around when everybody's out.
Yeah, we haven't seen it enough to
We haven't
be like
seen, yeah.
the Suns are this. We just you don't have that beauty of seeing it enough. I think me and you said I think they played like one game healthy with Cameron Johnson back. I
Yep,
know they played
and that was
healthy
against
together.
Brooklyn of all
Yeah,
time.
I know they played healthy together at the beginning of the season for a little bit, and then stuff just started happening. But I think they played like one good game with all five starters, and then
The trade happened.
the trade happened. The world broke
Yep.
basically at what 12 o'clock in the morning. I feel like so.
Yeah. 11
It's
at night.
hard to say what they are, and the only thing that sucks for them is so many people. I'm not going this route, but I know a lot of the viewing world is that if KD is healthy, which I'm pretty sure he will be, I'm pretty sure they're going to play it safe with him these last couple of games.
Oh, for sure.
If he's healthy and they don't win, it's a bust. Like, just scrap it, throw it away. It was a horrible idea, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just not leaning in that direction. I would like to see them go all the way, but I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, just blow everything up. I think you do have to tinker a
No.
little bit. Me and you have spoken about that a lot. Chris Paul probably has to either be moved or,
Yeah.
for
Oh,
the
don't blow it up. You take
no,
this off season to get that bench right.
yeah,
Period. And they get it
yeah,
and probably get CP3's replacement because he is getting up there in age. But you gotta get that
you
bench.
got to get the bench right. You just got to, and even if it comes down to people that you consider fan favorites or whomever, you just got to do what's right for the bench. I mean, you just do.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that's just what it's going to come down to. I think Monty and James Jones and they just have to sit back and look at the end of the season if it is a bust and just say, hey, we gotta narrow this out. We have to find the right pieces. Everybody else has to go.
Yep.
And I mean that's just literally any team. You want to cater to your superstar. So if you're not Book, KD, and I'm gonna say Aiden as well, everybody else is movable at that point. The only reason Aiden was really, really movable was for KD, if that was a thing way back. That's not a
Mhm.
thing anymore. So there's not another center out there that you would trade Aiden for at this point in time. You keep Aiden, you build around that. It's very able to be built around. I just think you need to have the right pieces. I think Chris Paul did what he was supposed to do coming in. He helped, bring up Devin Booker, help, mentor him, things like that. It's just not enough to probably get them over the hump, which KD can change this season. Let's not,
Yeah,
but we'll see.
yeah, we'll see, man. But yeah, I know that the game's about to start here in like 5 minutes. What
Yes,
is
sir.
your like, just real quick? What's like your prediction final score? Because I know you have the Kings winning. So what do you got? That's a final score.
I'm gonna go probably Kings one. I'll give them 121. I don't know why that's just in my head like that right now.
Mm.
Probably 118. 118 to 121. They're in that range. And I'll probably put the Suns at like 105, 106, something around there. It's
Yeah,
just a feeling. Yeah, it's just a feeling. They'll crack
yeah,
100. I'm not worried
yeah.
about that. But
I'm in a similar boat. I got like Kings 124 and Suns like 114 or something like that.
yeah, they'll crack 100. I'm not worried about that. It's just
I think
what
Book will.
happens.
I think Book will do his thing, and if he doesn't do his thing and is struggling shooting, then oh boy,
Oh, it's over.
this is gonna be a
It's
blow.
over. Even another vintage-ish performance from Chris Paul is not going to be enough. It's just
Yeah,
not. You're down two starters, so it's just not going to be enough.
yeah,
Booker has to probably have a 40, a high 30 ball or a 40 ball, and everybody else has to be clicking on all cylinders. Cameron Payne, everybody. So other
yeah.
than that, it could be an early night. We could be calling it an early night, early showers.
Yeah, man. But yeah, shoot, that'll do it for this episode of the Miller Sports Podcast. Feel free. We do this podcast under the affiliate of Burn City Sports, so please subscribe and just if you want to see any more me and Chris, we usually do podcasts every week. Whether it's Miller Sports Podcast or there's the Bird City Sports Podcast, just feel free to tune in. We're always going to be talking Suns and even Cardinals. Diamondbacks season's coming up, so there's that. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but for right now, I am your host, Franklin Miller. That's Christopher Denson. Have a good night and go Suns.
Go Suns.